My husband gave me a watch for our anniversary, but every time I wore it, I felt anxious and unwell. The unease crawled beneath my skin, like my body was desperately trying to warn me. I decided to sell it. The antique specialist's face drained of color as he examined it, his hands trembling. "Where did you get this? Go to the police immediately. This is serious." On our 5th wedding anniversary, Vincent presented me with a velvet box, his fingers lingering on mine as he handed it over. Inside, nestled on a creamy silk cushion, was a vintage watch with Hippocrates' portrait engraved on its face. Its ivory-colored dial was framed by a delicate gold bezel, and the soft aged leather strap felt cool and smooth against my fingertips. "Happy anniversary, my brilliant pathologist," Vincent whispered, his eyes capturing the candlelight with genuine warmth. He took the watch from the box and carefully fastened it on my wrist, his touch lingering just a moment too long. "I found it at a medical auction. It reminded me of you, a perfect blend of science and beauty, just like my Natalie." I admired the gift, my heart swelling with appreciation. The watch was truly exquisite, the craftsmanship telling stories of history and scientific pursuit. I thanked Vincent, wrapping my arms around his neck and pressing my lips against his. His thoughtfulness in choosing something that honored my profession meant everything to me. Vincent always knew exactly how to make me feel valued. That evening, Vincent was especially attentive, his usual pharmaceutical research talk set aside for more personal matters. He prepared my favorite dinner, roast duck with apples, lit candles that cast dancing shadows across our dining room, and played soft jazz that reminded me of our first date. We reminisced about our early days together, his laughter resonating through me when I recalled our disastrous honeymoon hiking trip. I felt cherished and secure, my fingers occasionally touching the watch's smooth surface. It seemed to me that our connection only grew more profound with each passing year, like a well-designed experiment yielding better results with time. However, the first day I wore the watch to the hospital lab, my body rebelled against it. At first, it was mild weakness and anxiety, like my peripheral nervous system was sending warning signals throughout my body. Then came a throbbing headache and vertigo that made the microscope slides blur before me. I attributed it to fatigue and my demanding schedule at the university hospital where I conducted pathology research. It was publication season, and I was likely just overextended, I reasoned, forcing myself to focus on the tissue samples. But the weakness persisted, growing more intense with each passing hour. I struggled to concentrate on cellular structures that normally fascinated me. My diagnostic notes became illegible, and dark shadows began flickering at the edges of my vision. I felt my legs weakening beneath me and grabbed the lab counter for support. After my shift, I returned home and immediately removed the watch. The moment it left my wrist, a wave of relief washed through my system, like a toxin being flushed away. The weakness gradually dissipated, replaced by clarity. My mind sharpened, and the inexplicable dread evaporated. I stared at the watch with scientific curiosity. Could this timepiece actually be triggering a physiological response? I dismissed it as coincidental, the scientist in me requiring more data. Tomorrow I'd wear it again and document what happened, a proper controlled experiment. The next day, the pattern repeated with undeniable consistency. As soon as I fastened the watch to my wrist, my symptoms returned with clinical precision. Weakness, dizziness, and nausea, classic signs of mild systemic toxicity. The symptoms intensified faster than before, my body now primed to react. When I removed the watch, my condition improved dramatically within 30 minutes. I began documenting other physiological responses in my personal research journal. Where the watch's clasp touched my wrist, an angry redness appeared with defined borders. The skin showed classic signs of irritation and localized inflammation. I described my symptoms to Vincent, but he laughed it off with casual dismissal. "Darling, doctors really do make the worst patients," he said, pulling me close against his chest. "It's probably just a metal sensitivity. Don't overthink it. If it continues, we'll run some tests." I felt Vincent wasn't acknowledging the validity of my observations. He often responded this way when I raised concerns, suggesting my scientific mind was making mountains of molecules. But I couldn't ignore my empirical observations. Something about this watch wasn't right, and my body was providing clear evidence. My research instincts screamed for further investigation. I began observing Vincent through the lens of a researcher studying unusual behavior. It seemed to me that his patterns had shifted significantly from baseline. He became increasingly secretive, emotionally volatile, frequently staying late at the pharmaceutical lab, and taking calls in hushed tones on our Boston terrace. I attempted direct questioning, but he deflected with textbook avoidance, citing project deadlines and corporate pressure. The emotional distance between us expanded like a cell culture, growing more pronounced daily. One evening, while Vincent showered, my ethical boundaries fell to concern as I checked his phone. I recognized the breach of privacy, but needed to validate my growing hypothesis. I quickly examined call records and text messages, finding nothing immediately alarming. Then I accessed his email, where a single message from an unfamiliar address caught my attention. It contained a cryptic note: "Test subject ends delivery mechanism is ready, awaiting final payment." A cold sensation shot through my nervous system like an electrical current. What could this possibly mean? I closed the email and returned the phone, my heart pounding with such force I could measure my own tachycardia. My mind raced through possible interpretations, none of them benign. From that moment, I committed to a methodical investigation of my circumstances. I needed to discover what Vincent was concealing and why the watch triggered such specific physiological responses. The evidence suggested my life might be in jeopardy. My first strategic move was consulting Madeline, a medical malpractice attorney whose analytical mind had supported me since medical school. Madeline listened with focused attention, her legal mind processing each detail. "You need specialized analysis of that timepiece," Madeline stated firmly. "This could be more than a defect. It might be deliberately dangerous." I nodded in agreement, feeling the weight of her assessment. I required an expert examination and objective analysis of the watch. But who possessed both the technical skills and discretion this situation demanded? Who could I trust with suspicions that sounded increasingly plausible yet terrifying? Madeline's expression darkened as she leaned forward. "Contact dermatitis at the precise contact point? That's not random, Natalie. Even if it's merely metal sensitivity, better safe than sorry. And these symptoms occurring only while wearing it. That's a correlation that demands investigation. Get that watch examined immediately or dispose of it entirely." I felt my chest tighten as her professional assessment confirmed my fears. Madeline's words, combined with my own scientific observations, created a hypothesis I couldn't ignore. "You're right, Madeline. I know someone who specializes in antique timepieces. I'll take it there tomorrow." The following morning, clutching my research notebook, I visited Oliver's antique timepieces in a quiet Boston district. The workshop looked modest but professional, with a sign reading, "Expert Watch Restoration and Appraisal." I selected this specialist hoping for scientific precision and discretion. Inside, the air carried notes of metal polish and fine machine oil. Behind a workspace filled with precision tools sat a silver-haired man with meticulous hands and observant eyes. His workbench nameplate read "Oliver Kent, Certified Horologist." I approached him, my professional demeanor barely masking my apprehension. "Good morning," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'd like a comprehensive assessment of this timepiece." I removed the vintage watch from my research bag and placed it carefully on his examination mat. Oliver donned magnification loupes and began methodically analyzing the watch with practiced movements. He inspected the case, examined the mechanism under a specialized microscope, and tested the winding mechanism. I observed silently, recognizing the methodical approach of a fellow specialist. After several minutes, Oliver looked up, his expression transforming from clinical interest to grave concern. He removed his loupes deliberately, choosing his words with care. "This timepiece," he began, his voice lowered, "has been professionally modified." My pulse quickened, a chill spreading through my extremities. "Modified? Could you elaborate?" Oliver studied me with assessment in his gaze. "I've worked with historical timepieces for over 20 years. This watch is authentic vintage, quite valuable, but someone has integrated a foreign component. Something concerning." He lifted the watch again and indicated a section on the clasp. "Notice this microscopic seam? An additional component has been integrated with extraordinary precision, but it's definitely not original to the manufacturer." I leaned forward, examining what he was indicating with clinical attention. The nearly invisible modification was imperceptible to anyone without specialized training. What exactly am I looking at? I asked, my scientific mind fighting rising alarm. Oliver exhaled slowly. I need specialized tools for confirmation, but my preliminary assessment is troubling. Very troubling. He retrieved a set of micro-instruments from a locked drawer and carefully manipulated the watch clasp. Inside was revealed a nearly invisible capillary delivery system. Donning nitrile gloves, Oliver meticulously extracted a sample. There's a reservoir here, he said, holding the evidence under specialized lighting. Containing a transparent solution, no viscosity, no odor, showing characteristics consistent with certain chemical compounds I've encountered during my previous work in chemical engineering. The laboratory portion of my brain struggled to process this information. What type of compound? I pressed, fighting the nausea threatening my composure. Oliver met my gaze with direct honesty. Based on the delivery mechanism design and your symptoms, this appears to be a slow-release transdermal toxin. Something designed to accumulate gradually in your system, mimicking natural illness progression. I gripped the counter edge to steady myself. A poison delivery system? In my anniversary gift? My thoughts raced to Vincent's suspicious behavior, his financial troubles, his late nights at the pharmaceutical lab. The clinical evidence assembled into a horrifying diagnosis. Have you been wearing this? Oliver asked, professional concern evident in his voice. I nodded numbly. Yes, regularly. My husband gave it to me for our 5th anniversary. Oliver's expression turned grave. You need to contact law enforcement immediately and limit your circle of trust. The sophistication of this mechanism suggests serious intent and professional resources. Your situation is potentially life-threatening. His quiet professional assessment carried the weight of a terminal diagnosis. I stood immobilized, my analytical mind temporarily overwhelmed. Fragments of memories and observations collided like cellular structures under stress. Vincent, my husband, had engineered my systematic poisoning. The question screamed in my mind, why? Noting my physical reaction, Oliver immediately offered me water in a clean glass. Focus on immediate steps, he advised with calm authority. Your safety must be your primary concern now. I sipped the water, my scientific mind gradually reasserting control. What course of action do you recommend? I asked, clinging to his expert assessment. First, documentation. I'll prepare a detailed analysis report. Second, secure evidence. I'll properly preserve samples from the mechanism. Third, contact authorities. Specifically someone with toxicology expertise. And most importantly, maintain normal behavior patterns around your husband. I felt my professional resolve strengthening with each logical step. Thank you, I said, meeting his eyes directly. Your expertise may have saved my life. Oliver shook his head. I simply applied specialized knowledge. The critical decisions ahead are yours to make. I left the workshop with samples secured in evidence containers and Oliver's detailed preliminary report. The world outside felt altered, as though observed through contaminated microscope slides. My trusted life partner had become a research subject exhibiting extreme pathology. Back in our home, I felt a cognitive chill pervade my thinking. Oliver's analysis and the evidence of the delivery mechanism echoed in my thoughts with clinical precision. My Vincent, with whom I'd shared research insights, morning coffee, and intimate moments, had designed my systematic poisoning. I required incontrovertible proof. Emotional paralysis was not an option. I needed to function like a researcher investigating a critical case. I maintained normal behavioral patterns, calibrating my responses carefully. Vincent greeted me with a practiced smile, inquiring about my supposed lunch with a colleague, the pretext I'd created for my absence. I responded with calculated vagueness about departmental politics, then excused myself to shower away both physical and psychological contamination. Following a strained dinner filled with artificial conversation, I retreated to my home office citing patient files requiring review. I needed to gather additional evidence immediately. Understanding Vincent could interrupt at any moment, I moved with methodical efficiency. First target, his laptop computer. Vincent maintained surprisingly lax digital security protocols, using predictable passwords, our anniversary date. Initial examination showed benign content, corporate emails, journal articles, and conference registrations. Deeper investigation revealed communications with a researcher named Jasmine. The exchanges, spanning recent months, contained both professional collaboration and explicit personal content. Vincent, I miss your touch. When will we meet again? Jasmine wrote. Soon, darling. Just a few more weeks until everything resolves, and our future begins, Vincent replied. My face flushed with unexpected emotion despite my clinical approach. Romantic betrayal. The discovery stung, but paled compared to the realization that this affair connected to my potential murder. I documented everything methodically, capturing screenshots with timestamp authentication. Next objective, his mobile device, which presented greater security challenges. Vincent maintained constant proximity to his phone with active security measures. I recalled observing his unlock pattern during a night when he believed I was sleeping. I reproduced the sequence from memory, successfully bypassing security. The device contained damning corroboration of my hypothesis. Beyond intimate exchanges with Jasmine, I discovered communications with an unnamed contact discussing delivery mechanisms and undetectable compounds. One message from Vincent stated, primary concern is naturalness of progression. Medical examination must reveal nothing suspicious. The evidence created a sensation of freefall, as though the ground beneath me had disappeared entirely. The data points aligned too perfectly for coincidence. Remembering Madeline's guidance, I determined to locate the creator of the watch's deadly mechanism. The following day, Madeline, leveraging her legal network, located Isabella Hawthorne, widow of a pharmaceutical technician turned watchmaker. The elderly woman resided in a modest Victorian house in the suburbs of Boston. I approached the interview methodically, explaining my interest in the vintage timepiece while carefully monitoring my vital signs. Isabella sat quietly for several moments, her fingers moving rhythmically across a string of wooden beads. Thomas created many specialized pieces, she finally offered in a measured tone. But one particular commission, it disturbed him profoundly. He became secretive during his final months. He told me he was receiving threats. My pulse quickened, but I maintained clinical composure. What specifically was the commission? I inquired, controlling my respiration rate. A timepiece with a special mechanism? Isabella's eyes narrowed with recognition. Medical-themed vintage watches requiring internal modification. The client was insistent about a specialized delivery system integrated into the clasp design. Said it was for pharmaceutical research. Thomas refused initially, but eventually relented. Our financial situation was desperate. Can you identify the client? I asked, maintaining neutral vocal tone. Isabella shook her head regretfully. Thomas was extremely cautious. He only mentioned the client was highly placed in the pharmaceutical industry. How did your husband die? I asked, striving for conversational normalcy. Cardiac arrest, Isabella replied, suspicion clouding her features. Without warning. No prior cardiac history whatsoever. My mind catalogued this crucial data point. The evidence assembled into a coherent diagnosis. Vincent's pharmaceutical knowledge, mounting debts, an affair with Jasmine, a poison delivery mechanism, and a watchmaker's suspicious death. The clinical picture indicated I was the target of a meticulously orchestrated homicide. Back at our home, I felt the walls of our bedroom closing in around me. I detected Vincent's heightened observation of my behavior patterns. The situation demanded immediate, decisive intervention. That night, after confirming Vincent was in deep sleep, I transferred my collected evidence to an encrypted drive. I studied my husband's relaxed features, my scientific mind struggling to reconcile this man with the calculated killer the evidence revealed. How had I missed the clinical signs behind his carefully constructed facade of devotion? I required additional expert consultation. Madeline represented my sole trustworthy resource now. I contacted her with urgency, keeping my voice level despite elevated stress hormones. Madeline, I need immediate consultation, I whispered, controlling my vocal tremor. When we convened at a secure location, I delivered my conclusion directly. Vincent is systematically poisoning me. Madeline processed my evidence without interruption, her legal mind evaluating each element. Upon completion of my presentation, she grasped my hand with reassuring pressure. "We need to engage law enforcement immediately," she stated firmly. "Your documentation is compelling. The justice system will respond." I acknowledged her assessment with a determined nod. The path forward was clear despite its emotional complications. I could no longer function under continuous threat. Vincent's methodical poisoning required immediate legal intervention. My first priority was securing comprehensive documentation of Vincent's communications, emails with Jasmine, financial transactions revealing debt, and particularly disturbing research queries on undetectable neurotoxins and degenerative neurological disorders. Every digital artifact would serve as evidence in constructing an airtight case. I approached the task with the same methodical precision I applied to difficult pathology cases, uncovering malignancy hidden within apparently healthy tissue. I reviewed Oliver's detailed technical analysis repeatedly. His report stated unequivocally, the vintage timepiece contains a sophisticated concealed microinfusion system modified to deliver controlled substances transdermally. Oliver had included microscopic photography documenting the delivery capillary system hidden in the clasp. I recognized the need for additional forensic confirmation. The legal standard required independent verification. Madeline activated her professional network with impressive efficiency. She arranged confidential access to Dr. Rebecca Chin, a leading toxicologist with judicial experience. The 48-hour waiting period stretched my scientific detachment to its limits. Sleep became virtually impossible as I maintained constant vigilance. I calculated multiple scenarios where Vincent might discover my investigation or accelerate his plan. Finally, Madeline contacted me with laboratory confirmation. The analysis had identified the precise compound in the watch mechanism. "It's thallium compound TL-237, Madeline reported gravely. A synthetic derivative that causes progressive neurological deterioration indistinguishable from natural degenerative conditions. Extended exposure results in systemic failure and death, with minimal forensic evidence." A cold recognition spread through my system. Thallium derivative. The scientific pieces aligned perfectly. The vertigo, neuromuscular weakness, cognitive disruption, all classic presentations of systematic thallium poisoning. Vincent had engineered my death to present as natural neurological deterioration. I recalled Isabella's account of the specialized commission, the threats, the mysterious pharmaceutical client demanding absolute discretion. Using Madeline's secure phone, I contacted Isabella directly. "Isabella, this is Natalie," I stated calmly. "Regarding our discussion about the modified timepiece." "Yes, I remember," she replied, her voice carrying noticeable tension. "I require your formal statement confirming that Vincent Richardson commissioned that mechanism from your husband." "Lord have mercy," Isabella whispered. "I had my suspicions. He visited yesterday, offering substantial payment for my continued silence." "Your testimony is essential," I responded. "We're building a case that may also explain your husband's death." Armed with comprehensive evidence, digital communications, toxicology analyses, and expert testimonials, I determined it was time for formal intervention. I contacted the Boston Police Department's Special Crimes Unit, requesting Detective Ryan, who specialized in toxicology cases. Our meeting occurred at precisely 9 o'clock the following morning. I sat across from Detective Ryan in his organized office, presenting my case with clinical detachment. Ryan listened with focused attention, interrupting only to request scientific clarification. His demeanor was professional yet compassionate, generating sufficient trust to share my complete findings. I methodically presented my evidence portfolio. Microscopic images of the delivery mechanism, chemical analysis reports, forensic extractions of digital communications, and Isabella's sworn statement. Ryan examined each piece of evidence with meticulous attention. "These allegations are extraordinarily serious, Dr. Richardson," he stated after completing his review. "We'll need absolutely conclusive evidence to proceed against someone of your husband's professional standing." "I've provided comprehensive documentation," I responded, maintaining direct eye contact. My husband systematically attempted to poison me, and I'm prepared to testify to every detail. Ryan nodded with professional certainty. We'll execute a search warrant immediately. If the evidence confirms your account, we'll proceed with arrest. The subsequent 5 hours stretched like tissue samples under high magnification. I remained at my university office, constantly monitoring my phone. My mind calculated probabilities that Vincent might detect the investigation, attempt escape, or destroy critical evidence. At precisely 4:38 p.m., my phone illuminated with Ryan's name. Dr. Richardson, we've taken your husband into custody, he stated directly. We've secured significant corroborating evidence. Please come to headquarters to provide your formal statement. A wave of physiological relief coursed through my nervous system. The immediate threat had been neutralized. My physical safety was secured. At police headquarters, I delivered a comprehensive statement under oath. I detailed my experience chronologically: the anniversary gift, the progressive symptoms, the discovery of the delivery mechanism, Vincent's communications with Jasmine, and his financial motivations. I responded to all investigative questions with precision and clarity. Meanwhile, Vincent maintained categorical denial of all accusations. He insisted the watch was merely a thoughtful gift, claimed complete ignorance of any toxin, professed his devotion to me, and suggested I was experiencing psychological delusions. He portrayed himself as the victim of my scientific paranoia. However, the forensic evidence was irrefutable. Laboratory analysis confirmed thallium derivative in the watch mechanism. Digital communications with Jasmine and financial records established clear motivation. Isabella's testimony verified Vincent had commissioned the modified timepiece. Within a week, Vincent was formally charged with attempted murder and industrial espionage. He was denied bail and remanded to custody. The investigation expanded beyond my case. Investigators uncovered Vincent's involvement in pharmaceutical patent fraud and connections to organized criminal networks. Evidence revealed Vincent had accumulated over $2 million in concealed debt and had recently increased my life insurance to $5 million with himself as sole beneficiary. Forensic analysis also linked him to Thomas Hawthorne's suspicious death, a deliberate poisoning designed to eliminate the watchmaker who could connect Vincent to the murder weapon. I absorbed these revelations through formal case briefings rather than media reports. Sitting in my new apartment, reviewing the official documents, I experienced a surge of righteous anger mixed with scientific curiosity about the depth of human deception. I struggled to reconcile how I'd shared my life with someone capable of such calculated malevolence. Following my near-death experience, my recovery followed a methodical but challenging progression. I consulted with a trauma specialist who helped me process the psychological impact of intimate betrayal. I relocated to a different hospital, focusing on research into detecting subtle poisonings in medical cases. My social connections shifted to a carefully selected group of trusted colleagues. I required a complete system reset to rebuild my life. 1 year later, Vincent's trial concluded with the judicial system functioning as designed. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 35 years without possibility of parole. I declined to attend any court proceedings. I refused to allocate additional cognitive resources or emotional energy to the man who had weaponized my trust. My focus remained exclusively on moving forward. Following the conclusion of legal proceedings, I purchased a new timepiece for myself. Not antique but cutting edge, with clean lines and precision engineering. When I secured it around my wrist, I experienced a sensation of reclaimed autonomy spreading through me. This watch represented that my future belonged solely to myself and my scientific pursuits. I had regained control over my existence. I had survived systematic poisoning through methodical observation and analysis. And I would thrive, applying my experience to save others from similar threats.